Alright guys, we're here for another video. So today's video we are talking about competing and whether or not you should do it. So as a competitive bodybuilder, as a coach, this is something that comes up all the time. I often get asked, from just people on Instagram or clients, hey, should I compete? What do you think? When people come to me that are considering competing. And I just want to make this video basically talking about, what to expect and, maybe talk about things like how you should have your life set up in order to have a successful prep, but more so just to give people insight on kind of what they're really getting into when they do a contest prep and get ready for a show. Because I think a lot of people, again, from my experience, a lot of times they'll see a bodybuilding show on a live stream or they'll go watch a bodybuilding show and they see, whether they're just going to watch or they have a friend or a family member in the show, and they see these people in all of their glory, after 12, 16, 20 week prep, whatever that person did. They go out, they look their absolute best after dieting and training super hard for that amount of time. And if they win, it's even more glorious. And you can see the fulfillment on that person's face that's on stage, when they finally get out there and do their thing. And obviously I've experienced that myself. And it's absolutely awesome. For me, there's nothing that beats it. And that's why I'm addicted to the sport, to chase that feeling of winning shows and being on stage, at my best, improving my physique and all that good stuff. And those are all very positive things, and it's great things that come with bodybuilding and competing. But it's like 1% of it. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, go watch a bodybuilding show and then decide, oh, look, this looks really fun. I want to do this. They don't see the 16 weeks before in the process that, someone must go through in order to achieve that level of conditioning and muscularity. No matter what your division is, it's hard, right? Getting in shape and getting in that kind of shape is very hard, especially if you want to be competitive, because that's the other thing with this, especially at the regional level. And obviously that's more so the audience for this video, because it's people who are maybe thinking about doing a show for the first time. Regional shows are more of a show. So it's more of a promotion, more so than you would see at nationals or any type of pro qualifier event where, those shows are all about business. There's no theatricals, there's no messing around. It's literally about just doing the show, competing, hitting the mandatories. Yeah, you still get to do your routines, but it's not really part of the show. It happens pretty quick, and then, they're trying to decide who they're gonna turn pro. Whereas regional shows are set up because, obviously, I've been involved in promoting shows before. We want to attract people to come watch the show, of course, but, also, people that are competing have family members and friends that are coming to see them. So it needs to be more of a spectacle, right? So that's really exciting, and more so a reason to do a show, right? And if that's your goal, is just you want to do one show, or you just kind of want to challenge yourself, do a prep as best as you can, get in the best shape you can, hop on stage, your family and friends are going to come watch you, more power to you. I think that's awesome. I think it's a great goal to have. I think it's a really good way to get yourself in good shape. And yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think every single person that needs to compete needs to do it to be super competitive and they want to go pro and they try to be a good pro and go to the Olympia. Obviously that's not for everybody, and I totally realize that. So I encourage people that want to compete for that reason to do it. And that's fine. So let's get more into the people who, they watch a show and they want to do it and they want to be really competitive, right? And they, a lot of people these days, see a bodybuilding show, or, on social media now, there's lots of good stuff on there. People just see that lifestyle and they're just, I want to be a pro. I want to be a pro. They won't have that label. They won't have that title. And for some reason people think I guess just because of social media, and because there are a lot of pros now, in the sense that there's so many divisions, right? So there's a lot of pros in different divisions. So it can kind of seem easy to attain, but it's not at all. It's really not. No matter, how you plan to go get it, it's still a very vigorous process that you have to go through. And it's more than likely going to take years, depending on what division you want to compete in and your level of genetics, in going into the sport, because that's one thing, genetics plays a very big part in bodybuilding, and the people who excel in it have, at least decent genetics to very good genetics, in terms of responding to training, responding to the foods that are necessary to eat, being able to eat a lot of food on a consistent basis. you know, even like as far as responding to supplements, obviously that's important as well. So, you know, getting back to the point of, you know, you need to be aware that if you're going to compete to be competitive and be your best, there's a lot of things to consider, because it's going to take a lot out of you. It's going to take a lot away from your life. So I think, you know, the number one thing to consider would be your environment. You know, is your current environment even suiting for you to jump into a contest prep? You know, because if you're a very busy person, like if you're working, you know, 40 to 60 hours a week, and your job is strenuous, and you're kind of stressed, and you're very busy, and maybe, you know, you have kids at home or whatever it may be, you got to realize taking on prep, like, okay, for the first, you know, if you're doing a 16-week prep, for example, maybe for the first 6 weeks, it might not seem that crazy because you're kind of just getting into it, slowly cutting down calories, doing a little bit of cardio, getting in pretty good shape. But if you get to that 10-week out point, you know, 8 weeks out, 6 weeks out, and, you know, calories start getting really low, and cardio, you know, starts getting up to like maybe an hour a day, you know, you only have so much time and energy to spare in a day, right? You know, especially time. So if you're, like I said, have a very busy schedule and you have to like rush through your workouts, rush through your cardio, it's adding stress to your day. So you're actually stressed, cortisol levels are high. Like, these are all things that are not going to lead to like a good prep. You know, they're not conducive to a good prep. Like, you need to be relaxed. You kind of need to be, like, you don't need to be like on your own schedule in a sense, like, but you need to have like a very good schedule set up so that you can kind of stick to your plan. You're not stressed. Like, you know, when you're training, you have lots of time to go in there and do what you're supposed to do. And you also need time to rest and recover. Like, that's huge. Like, if you're so ran off your feet and you're losing sleep because you have to, you know, you're working all these hours and you have to stay up later to get your workouts in and get your food in, and like, again, and like I just said, you're missing sleep, recovery is going to be low. So you're not going to yield the best look. You're not going to be able to retain as much muscle as you can throughout that process, because that's what prep is. Like, we're really just trying to shed body fat at a very slow rate to maintain as much muscle as we can throughout the process. So yeah, like if your environment isn't suiting to that, it's going to be a struggle for you, not only physically, but mentally, and you're not going to enjoy the process. Like, that's the other thing about this whole idea, guys. It's like, if contest prep isn't like somewhat fun and enjoyable for you, and you're just in it and you hate your life because it's really just making your life harder, then what's the point? Like, there's really no point. Like, getting to the show and doing that one day where you stand on stage is not going to be worth 16 weeks of stress. And the other thing that comes with that is the stress they can put on like your relationships, you know, your friendships and stuff like that. Like, you know, that's something you see a lot with people, because they have to become so selfish with their time, because they're so stretched out, that it can affect the, you know, their relationship with their girlfriend or their boyfriend, like whatever it may be. And again, it cannot be worth it. And, you know, personally, I've seen relationships end from people being in contest prep, whether it's just one person or both people doing a prep at the same time. You know, the pressure and stress builds up, and you know, it can cause that to happen, and like, that's obviously not worth it, right? So those are all things you need to consider. So yeah, like, your environment being number one. Like, you know, is your daily life going to allow you to have a good, successful contest prep? You know what I mean? If you're already stressed out, if you're already working a hard job, where you get home from work and you're exhausted, you know, taking on a prep, it might not just be the right time. I'm not saying that you got to write it off forever, but it might just not be the right time, right? So if you're going to do a show and you want to be competitive, you know, my next thing would be like, did you do a good off-season phase leading into the prep? You know, did you follow a meal plan and focus on building muscle for, you know, a period of 16, 20 weeks or longer, you know, hopefully years leading up to this point, if it's your first show and you're serious about it, that you've been training for a long time before you consider doing a show. Because you need to have you want to have some muscle, right? No matter what division you're in. And also, the most important thing of that is like, not only having a lot of muscle, but you want to build up your calorie intake as high as possible before you start a prep. You know, a lot of people make the mistake of going into their first show, like, they're kind of just doing like whatever in like the off season, even though they haven't really had an off season. Like, you know, they're just like, they go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, like, they eat okay, but like, they're going out drinking on the weekends and stuff. So like, you know, maybe on average they're taking in 2,500 calories a day. And, you know, just to stay healthy, maybe they're doing an hour and a half of cardio a day or something, or a day, sorry, like a week or something like that. So they're already doing some cardio. But then because of their lifestyle, they also have some body fat that they need to lose. So, you know, they come to me as a prep coach and they're not eating very much. They're already doing some cardio and they have fat to lose. So, you know, we have a 16-week prep. You got to imagine that, you know, to keep them getting leaner, I'm going to have to take away some calories. I'm going to have to add some cardio. But there's not much to work with there. So by the end of the prep, this person's going to get down to 1,000 calories a day and 2 hours of cardio to get in shape, right? Whereas if they had a really good off season, a really structured off season where they were focusing on, slowly increasing their food intake every week and gaining muscle while doing that, like they're feeding that muscle growth, and they get up to the point they're eating 4,000 calories a day and doing no cardio, excellent. We're in good shape to start prep now, because as a coach, I have lots of room to work with you. That's why I really encourage people before they consider a prep with me to do an off-season phase with me, so I can get them in like the healthiest possible position to make them have a healthy prep. I don't want to have to starve anyone as a coach, but if you come to me and you're like, hey, I want to get in shape no matter what for this show, and this is what we're working with, like, you might have to starve, and it's going to be very difficult on you. You're going to feel that much more fatigue. It's going to be that much more stressful on your body. It's going to be that much harder to get sleep because you're going to be starving all the time. Whereas if you really just did that good structured off season before and built up your calorie intake, like I said, we have much more food to work with. So maybe at the end of the prep, instead of being down to 1,000 calories, you're only down to 2,000 calories. Instead of doing 2 hours cardio a day, you're only doing 1 hour cardio a day. So it's literally like half as hard, half as difficult if you just do your due diligence and do a proper off season phase, which is just going to allow you to have more muscle, which is just going to allow you to place better in the show anyway. If you're serious about competing, you actually want to compete to win, right? Like, competing to win is a whole nother game, guys. Like, every show, like, there's killers going to them. There's people that have been doing this for years that want it really bad and maybe have done this show or done that nationals, like, 6 or 7 times, like, they know what they're doing, they're bringing heat. So, as a first-time competitor, you got to recognize that and understand that, there's people that you're going to be competing against who are taking it serious. And if you're going to win with that mindset to win, you need to, do everything right. You need to have a long-term plan for this. You gotta, you want to do a show, pick a show a year from now. Pick a show that's going to give you 6 months off season, a little bit of break in between, and then it's like a 4-month prep. And like, then you're going to be in good shape for your first show, right? And obviously get a coach to help you with that. That's another thing that will help you tremendously. Don't try to do your first prep on your own. Not a good idea. So yeah, that touches on, having an off season, going to put you in a healthier position to have a healthier prep, essentially. Build up that food intake as high as you can. You don't want to start a prep on low calories and doing like any amount of cardio ideally, because it's going to, your body you have to push your body into a calorie deficit in order to get lean. So keeping your body in that calorie deficit, if you're already starting at low calories, it's not going to be easy. Okay, so let's talk about your relationship with food, right? In contest prep, if you're doing it right, you're going to be very limited in your food variety because you have to stick with, generally whole foods that are obviously going to offer us the most like micronutrient dense options, because if you're in an energy deficit, like a macronutrient energy deficit, we want to have our food packed with as much micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals as possible to keep us as healthy as possible, because we're already depriving our body of energy. We don't want to deprive our body of micronutrients as well. It's going to keep us healthy and those things. So, we need to be selective in our food, and also we need to eat foods that digest well for us. We have to make sure that, again, we're eating in a calorie deficit. We need to be eating foods that are going to allow us to absorb all of our nutrients, so we have to eat foods that we digest well. So that's going to limit you even further in the foods that you can eat. Like, I know for me, like, my only carb source of prep is oats and rice. Very limited. So only carb source for 16 weeks, right? That's 4 months. And then besides that, for protein, eggs, egg whites, protein powder, chicken, salmon, red meat, some beef, some steak. That's it. That was the diet. 16 weeks, so, and that's what it takes to reach peak physical condition. And keep in mind that, you're eating those foods the whole time, and the amount of carbs you're eating and fats that you're eating are getting lower and lower as you go. So if you're a big food person and, you rely on food for, like comfort in any sort of way, or you just really love going out with your friends and family and eating every week, that's something that you love and makes you really happy, like, that is totally okay. That is perfectly normal and healthy, right? I like to do that too, of course, as a competitor, but I can put that away for periods of time. I don't need it in my life all the time because of the gratification I get from competing, and doing what I do as a bodybuilding is enough fulfillment for me. That's a different type of fulfillment. That's the way I look at it. And it's just, I can put that away whenever I need to, but not everybody can. And putting that away doesn't make everyone happy. So if you're going through a prep and you are just missing that time with your friends and missing going out and eating, and you're really food focused, and being on this diet is like depressing for you, what's the point, right? What's the point in doing this if you're gonna hate the whole process because you love food and this is not allowing you to eat the food you want? You hate your diet, you don't look forward to any meals, you're hungry all the time. Maybe you don't like being hungry. It's not very fun. It's a weird thing to embrace, but You know, you get used to it after a while, but it's not for everybody, right? So again, that's just another thing I want to put out there, because I've seen people that end up with like eating disorders and stuff after shows because they deprive themselves for so long, and like they, you know, it was their first show, and then they go on these crazy binges after to eat everything that they missed throughout their prep, and they end up in a really hard spot, like a really unhealthy spot after the show, like gaining weight too fast after a show, and it can really happen, guys. It happens often. So that's the other thing, like, you know, you need to have discipline, you need to have self-control, like you need to really be able to look at food as fuel for that time, and not as like a reward system for yourself, or any like an enjoyment system, you know what I mean? So that's one thing that's very difficult about it, that a lot of people struggle with, and it's just something to be aware of, you know what I mean? Like it's something that you need to ask yourself and be honest with yourself about. And I think that, you know, could help you make a better decision on whether prep is like for you or not. So there you go, that's food. Yeah, and now, you know, training, right? Do you love training? I think you have to love training if you want to compete, because you're going to do the hardest training sessions of your life. Like when you are in prep, you know, 4, 5, 6 weeks out, you're deprived of nutrients, you're very tired, fatigue is high, you're not going to the gym and getting a pump, your strength kind of dwindles away, you know, especially towards the last weeks of prep. Training is not fun, you know, but if you love it, it really helps you get through it. But if you don't love it, you're probably not gonna be able to push yourself as hard as you need to when you don't want to train. That's the thing. Like, I know for me, I've learned that, you know, you really, no matter how you feel in prep, pushing yourself and training as hard as you can and lifting as heavy as you can is so important to keeping muscle, because if you start to take it easy in the gym and start to lift lighter just because you're tired, your muscles are gonna waste away. You gotta give your body a reason to keep the muscle that you have, so you gotta keep trying to lift the weights that you were lifting in your off season when you were at your strongest. You know, so I think that if you're someone who, like, you know, doesn't really love training that much, you know, as is, and you just want to compete more so for the glory, to get on stage and get some pictures and for social media and stuff like that, I think you're going to have a hard time with it. And although you might be able to push through and make it through, again, like, is that going to be worth it for you? It's like all those times going to the gym, just hating your life, going to be worth getting on stage for a half an hour or an hour for one night of the year. You know, that's tough. That's definitely tough. And that's something, again, you have to be honest with yourself about. You know, are you competing for the right reasons, right? You know, the love of training should come first. It came first for me. All the pro bodybuilders that I know, it came first for them too. Like, we just love to train, you know. If I wasn't a pro bodybuilder, if I wasn't competing, I would still train. I will always train. I will train until I'm dead, for sure. Because, you know, even like 1 or 2 rest days a week from the gym for me is difficult, you know. So that just gives you an idea of like how passionate someone who competes is, right? You know, so just, again, some insight that, you know, you really got to love this stuff if you want to do it and be competitive at a high level. And I think we'll end this video with, you know, basically, you know, first of all, doing your first show and having like realistic expectations, I think, is important, because, you know, everybody wants to win. You know what I mean? Especially when you're doing a bodybuilding show, something that's so hard, takes so much time, so much preparation goes into it. You know, by the time you get there, like, you know, you spend so much time in your own head and training, like, you pretty much have yourself convinced you're going to win, like, because you think you deserve to win because of all the hard work you put in. And that's, like, so true for everybody, right? Especially if you do a prep, like, the proper way and you don't cheat or anything like that. You know, you're a winner just for making it. But unfortunately, not everybody does. And there can only be one winner per division and one overall winner per each class. And that's the goal for everyone, is being an overall winner. And that should be your goal. That's going to make you bring out the best in yourself. That's going to make you, having that in your head while you're training and doing your cardio and eating your crappy meals and you're hungry, you got to have that thought of victory, and you got to be visualizing yourself winning, you know, that trophy on stage, because that thought is what's going to push you, you know, through the hardship and prep, right? But again, you know, you might show up and good chance your first show, there's going to be someone better than you that's just been doing it for longer than you and is better at it than you. So you know, you can't let that discourage you, you know, especially if you're serious about competing, you want to get better, and maybe you want to be a pro, that's your goal. You got to take all those losses as learning experiences. I mean, that's what I did. I didn't always know that, especially when I was younger and took my first couple losses. Like, you know, I was probably kind of silky about it. But in hindsight, it just made me work harder, because I just realized, hey, I'm not good enough. This guy beat me because of this, so this is what I got to improve. I got to learn how to do this. I got to learn like this prep process, and, you know, just things like that. And yeah, every loss is a learning experience, and you just got to use it as motivation. That's what I did. I've been competing for 8, 9 years. I didn't win my first bodybuilding show until this year, and it's the same year I turned pro. So, things can happen really fast if you just trust the process, take your losses as learning experiences and don't let like your expectations of, winning, destroy you if that doesn't happen for you, right? That's just something to keep in mind too when it comes to competing. And yeah, so the last thing I want to end off is like, why do you want to do it? Like, what is your motivation behind this, right? That's the biggest thing you need to ask yourself. Like, I know for me originally, it was just because I was missing competitive sports and I just really like training. And I was like, okay, the only way to kind of compete in what I like to do now is bodybuilding. So I didn't know I loved it at the time. In fact, when I did my first prep, I was saying to myself towards the end of it, I was never going to do it again because it was so hard. And again, at the time I was in school, like my life was super hard and I just did it anyway, got shredded, did the show. But when I actually did the show, I realized like, wow, I really do love this. This is something I want to get into and I'm going to do whatever it takes to kind of be my best at it. And I kind of just caught the bug and just went from there, competed almost every year since then. And if I took a year off, it was like strictly to try to improve for bodybuilding. So I've been taking it really serious for a long time to get to where I am. Because that's just what it takes. And you realize that like by losing, for me, that's what it was. Like I would lose a show and go back the next year like, oh, this is my year. Like I did everything I had to improve and realize, okay, that wasn't enough. And then I'll take another loss and that wasn't enough. And then you just understand that you have to do more. You have to put more into it. You have to make more sacrifices. You have to, miss out on more social occasions. You got to stay home and rest, more than you were. You have to eat more, eat better, train smarter, learn your body better, learn how to pose better. There's like a million things and variables that go into this and being a high level competitor. So, it's a tough lifestyle to take on because that's what it is, guys. It's a lifestyle. It's not just like a temporary thing, unless you're one of those people that just want to go do a show, like for fun or whatever. Like I said, if you want to take it serious and you want to do it over the long term and reach a high level of it, like you're taking on a whole other life on top of your life, basically. That's what it feels like. You have to, I know for me now, obviously, whether I'm in prep or off season, like I eat my 6 meals a day, I hit the gym, I do my mobility work, I do my cardio. There's a lot to stay on top of. It becomes easier the more you do it because all these things become habits and it becomes a lifestyle, of course. But it doesn't mean it's easy, right? And it doesn't mean there's lots of days where I don't want to train. There's lots of days that I wish I could just eat 3 meals of Subway, McDonald's, and Tim Hortons instead of eating chicken rice twice and beef and rice and then salmon and rice and then eggs and oats and then a protein shake and oats before I go to bed. That's what I do every day because that's what I have to do to be my best, right? So anyways, guys, I hope this video helps give some insight on whether or not you should compete if you're thinking about it. That was the whole idea. Again, guys, drop some comments below. Really appreciate that. Any ideas for videos that you'd like me to make, I'm down to do whatever. Drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. So thanks for watching.